You know, I really like racing games, and when it comes down to probably the best people for racing games, it's Sega. Hands down, Sega has made some of the greatest racing games of all time. So when Sega needed to debut some new arcade hardware, the Model 1, what game did they decide to make? Why, they decided to make
Virtua Racing!
Now, because I'm poor, I actually don't own the original arcade cabinet. Pretty shocking. So I've got to downsize a bit, and I'm going to play the 32X version of the game, Virtua Racing Deluxe. And I would be playing the Saturn version, but whatever, Virtua Racing Deluxe. Originally an arcade game in 1992, it boasted some of the most impressive hardware at the time. The game eventually followed up with a Genesis port of the original. Port! Not like a remake or anything, port! Now the 32X version of the game, gameplay-wise, added 2 new tracks, and it also performed better. And that's it. Now enough history class, let's actually talk about the game itself. Aside from that kick-ass intro, the menu itself is extremely simple. You have Virtua Racing, Time Attack, Versus, Records, and Options. And our first destination would have to be the Options menu. Now, being that this came out in 1994, developers actually cared what buttons you would like to do what, and so clearly Sega followed. So you could choose from over 6 different types, and I say over because you could make your own in case Sega didn't please you enough, you entitled asshole. And right from the get-go, you can listen to all the music, all the sound effects, and all the voices. Yeah, time bonus. Before you start the game, you're given the option of choosing your car and automatic handling. Formula cars are fast but light, stock cars are heavier but a little slower, and prototype cars are really fast but have absolutely awful controls. You also have automatic and manual, and since I'm American, I pretty much have to pick automatic. As stated in the beginning, there are 5 tracks to pick from: Big Forest, Bay Bridge, Acropolis, Highland, and Sand Park. Big Forest is the easy one, Bay Bridge is medium, and Acropolis is the hard one. The new tracks don't actually have a defined difficulty behind them, but if I had to list them, Sand Park would probably be around easy medium, and Highland is definitely Virtua Go Fuck Yourself mode. Gameplay-wise, it's as basic as it gets. You hold down a button to accelerate, you have another button you can hold down for braking, you go left, you go right, you pass laps, it's pretty much like that. What differs is the arcade racing design it has. Basically, you pass certain checkpoints and you get seconds in which you can still keep playing, obviously used for quarter sucking. The timer goes down as you play, and no matter what, you'll never be able to reach what you started with. Of course, you could be winning in split seconds, and normally that's where it matters the most. It's an extremely stressful but so tense and exciting moment. This design choice, while it seems like it's counterproductive to what a modern video game should act like, it's extremely exciting and it's really pushing you to keep being better. I certainly had a lot of moments fucking up when I was trying to just get Highland beaten, but I did it. I did it in the end, and man, it is so satisfying when you win one of these races. Is this sort of like an artificial difficulty limiter, so it's like, hey, put more quarters in? For the most part, yes, it is. But I would argue that it also acts as an encouragement for you to get better at the game, and honestly, it does that just fine. When it comes to the tracks themselves, they're actually pretty damn well designed. You can play as every car in automatic or manual and still pretty much beat all the stages. And with that system, that means that some karts are better on other tracks. Time Attack mode is another addition to this game, and it's actually more like a practice mode. Time limits and other racers are removed, but the rest of the tracks are pretty much all for you, so you can crash as much as you want and get your bearings on a track. The records menu does its job too. Just shows your records. It also shows what the developers had for records. I mean, yeah, they're pretty good. I beat a lot of the records, so they can laugh all the way to hell! It also shows you the camera mode the people were playing in when they got those times. So, it's useless, but cool. And now the multiplayer mode is pretty much a prime thing. It's a racing game. What kind of racing game wouldn't have multiplayer in it? 2-player mode is kind of like Time Attack mode, in which all other cars are removed and there's no time limit. So it's pretty much a one-on-one between you and your friend. However, as you can see, the screens are also reduced in size, so as visibility was already a little bit of a problem, it's a little bit greater of one here. But a more surprising thing is the fact that the frame rate stays the same here as it would in one-player mode. And you know, speaking of graphics, okay, yes, they're dated, but I don't care. It has a very unique charm to it, really. The visibility is a little bit weird in this game. It's not really weird because of the draw distance, it's weird because of how the pixels are for scaling. Scaling in the game is a little strange, and it's not really perfect, so it's kind of hard to tell where other carts are. In fact, I've seen carts that were just a pixel wide. But for the most part, the graphics do their job just fine, and they're easy to get used to, really. In fact, I'd honestly say they're stylized impressively well. One of the coolest things about this game, though, is all the little details. Do you guys ever notice the skid marks on the road from other racers? Another cool thing is that the other racers race in tiers, so you can kind of tell which tier you're in just by the color of the cart. And that's another cool thing, too. They were pretty creative with what limited technology they had, especially considering the 32X isn't as powerful as the Model 1 itself. So seeing these minute details carry over is really cool. So what can I say about the soundtrack? Quite simply, I love it. This is some of the highest quality stuff, not just on the 32X, but on the Genesis in its entirety. Virtua Racing Deluxe has just the best soundtrack that I've heard on a Sega Genesis. It's really that good. The only thing I don't like about the music is that when you pass checkpoints is when they play. There isn't really a thing as stage music in Virtua Racing. Instead, when you pass checkpoints or laps, you're given a little upbeat tune. Which means you'll be hearing a lot of this. Fresh beats. But hey, those funky beats during the checkpoints are awesome. I have a feeling that was more of a stylistic decision than it really was a hardware limitation thing, but even so, a little bit weird, but it grows on you, and you know what? It doesn't really need to be changed. And the menu music is also really cool too. My favorite song in the entire game would have to be the Records Room, cause I mean, this! You hear that? That's the sound of a Super Nintendo crying in the corner, cause this is funky! So, what can I say in my position that Virtua Racing Deluxe needs that I would probably want to improve? You know, it's kind of hard to say because there's not really that much wrong with this game. There is one pretty big problem with the game though. When you beat all the stages and pretty much complete it with every kind of car and do all the time attack, it's like, then what? You don't really get anything at the end, it's just, there, you're done. It's a racing game. A lot of its replayability is from it being replayable, but, you know, adding a few more tracks and then making it so you had to unlock them, that might make a little bit more of an initiative for people to keep playing it too. Also, I'd tweak the tracks just a little bit to get rid of some unfair curves because of how the 32X looks compared to the arcade. Sometimes the turns feel like they come out of nowhere, even if you do expect them. It feels a bit weird, but it is easy to get used to. So really, that's all I'd have to say about Virtua Racing. It's a fun, fast-paced arcade racer for the 32X, and probably one of the only good games left on it. If you get a chance, in my opinion, play it! It's awesome! Don't just play the 32X version. If you see the arcade cabinet, the Genesis version, somehow, the Saturn version, if you see any of those, give it a shot. Virtua Racing is a fantastic game, and it's just a good time to sit down, have fun, and just play around with a racing game. Graphics may look a bit dated, but dang it, you're just gonna have a fun time no matter what when playing this. I'd highly recommend you guys playing this, and if you ever get the chance to play it, I hope you have fun. Game over! Oh my god, look out! Time bomber! Now when you boot up Quarter!